guess feel free to stop us at any point if you've got questions on anything. But we'll talk through the 2106 release and kind of go through some of the highlights of things that we're doing. So the first big one, this was a request that we hadn't had for years, and then all of a sudden we had like 4 different people come up with the idea. So we wanted the ability to define specific formats that need to be picked up from the owning library. We've got one consortium where they do that for all of their materials, and other people want it for things like seed libraries, Wi-Fi hotspots, tools, that kind of thing. So we added the ability, and that's going to be configured in ILS integration and account or indexing profiles. And when we edit this, we'll now go down to the format section, and you can define, like in this case, we've got our seed tool, or our seed catalog and garden tools as must pick up at the holding branch. And we also did it for things like magazines, just as an example. So now I'm going to have to log out and log back in. So let's just sign out, and we'll do a search for, just do a blank search. And I'm going to limit, in this case, just to magazines, just because they have multiple ones, multiple branches. So if we place hold on this magazine and I log in with my account, then we can select where to pick it up. In this case, I just see the north branch in the main library, which is where those 2 items are located. Whereas if I'm looking for like a book normally, so if I got rid of that and did a hold on a book, I would get all of the branches. So here, I normally get all of the branches, but in this case, because we've restricted it, we would only do that. If you do choose to do this, you will need to be careful that you have all of your loan rules set up in the ILS to support that. So some people are choosing either, you have to either say, hey, for those items, we only have one type of, or the items for one branch on its own bib, and you're placing a bib level hold on that, or when you go to fill the items, you're filling based off the local stock rather than making it go in transit. So there is some coordination you'll have to do with your ILS if you choose to do it. But for things like seed libraries and stuff, if they're only owned by one branch, then that works, or tool collections and that kind of thing. So just for those things you don't want to put on a truck. We also, or I guess before I go on, any questions on that? Okay. Also have been working a lot on indexing performance, especially with some of the really, really large consortiums that we're getting now. So when we have hundreds of branches and millions of items, things were getting large and slow. So in one case, we had an index that was taking about 12 hours, and we cut about 5 hours off of that. So what we're doing is basically if the information for the library is the same as the location, we were duplicating that information. We're not anymore. So especially for very large consortiums of single branch libraries, this is going to be a really big performance improvement. There's been lots and lots of performance improvements around that. Few things then specific to some different ILSs. So for Koha, just when an item can't be renewed, you get the actual error message that we get from Koha. So like if I go into my account now, and look at my checked out titles. I have a bunch of these that are overdue. So if I renew this, I'm going to get an error that says we couldn't be renewed. And it's because it's been renewed the maximum number of times. Kind of no matter what that error message is, will not give you the actual error message. And these ones can be renewed until I just renewed it twice. So now I should get an error that it can't be renewed because it's reached the maximum number of renewals. Then there was in Koha, you can override the meaning of the not for loan status. By default, a not for loan status of 1 means library use only. And we just weren't recognizing when those got changed. So now if the not for loan status has been, the not for loan status of 1 has been renamed, we'll take that into account properly, and did a bunch more translations. Actually, Kirsten's been working really hard on translations. We've got lots of places that can be translated now that couldn't before. So, and we're always looking to make sure we can translate 100% of Aspen. So if you see other cases where you can't, let us know. For Polaris, we're doing a lot more to kind of help Aspen automatically set itself up, which is really nice for us as well as in the library as you're going through and maintaining things. So we can load material types, patron codes. We had one issue where it was loading locations too many times, so it's not doing that. And we also updated the continuous indexing. Previously, it was just looking at the date of the date an item was changed. So as it went throughout the day, it would get progressively slower. And we added checking the time as well. So we're getting updates now within a minute or two, unless you batch update tens or hundreds of thousands of items. It's quick. Some of these were in progress a little bit on. So for search updates, we did add some synonyms for some common numbers. So things like, well, we entered all of the numbers up to 1,000. So to get more, in more cases, it will return the same results if you search for like 4 wins, FOUR, or the number 4. We're still playing with that to make sure that it's returning exactly the same results. We might have to change some indexing things as well as adding just synonyms. So we'll keep working on that, but it is definitely better, at least for titles. When you were searching for both the format and availability, there were cases where it was not returning the correct things. So if we did a search for a format of DVD and available now, there were cases where it was showing something that was available in a different format, not DVD. So like maybe the Blu-ray was available, but not the DVD. So those two interact properly now. And then we had some fixes. So a few people had noticed that the facets that you had set up when you were in the grouped work facet configuration to display on the advanced search weren't showing properly. So now if we go to an advanced search, we'll see different search options. So in this case, we added the awards item type and movie rating that don't show on the main search screen, the main search results screen. And those are configured in your grouped work facet settings. And then kind of the opposite, we made the author page consistent with the facets displayed on the normal page. Those were showing the advanced search ones. So if we searched for like Midnight Library, and then click into the author name. These were showing the advanced search ones instead of the author search. Then Symphony, we had a bunch of updates as well. So some more tweaks to showing availability. So for Symphony now, it's just looking at whatever is on shelf according to your grouped works, to your grouped status, to show that it's available. Also did some checking to verify that truncated MARC exports don't get processed, and did some processing to verify that we can resume an export that is interrupted. So if like a MySQL connection or something goes away, we can easily resume that. So that's all the boring stuff. Any questions about any of the like ILS or search updates that we did? We can get into some of the more interesting end user things. So we've made a lot of updates to the user list functionality, trying to improve the My Lists page. So if we go into My Lists, we can see there's a bunch of things we can do now. So first we can sort. So we can sort things by title. Whoop. I need to sign in as my administrator account that actually has lists. So if I go to my lists page here, I can now create a list from here or delete selected lists. We also get indicators for what's private, what's public, what's searchable, not searchable. So just ways to make it easier at a glance to see how those look and what settings you've applied. We can also sort these. So if we sort by what was created recently, or what was updated recently. So easy ways to get back to the title, the lists that you were using last. And then creating a list from here. We also have, if you have more than 20 lists, this list will get paginated so that you don't have to see them all at once. Then when we're actually editing a list, so if I go back into, let's do our frog and toad list. So we were having issues dragging them up to the very top, which has been fixed now, so that when we drag it up to the top, that works properly. It was working if you dragged them down, but not up. So that's fixed. There were cases where we could see deleted lists for collection spotlights and browse categories. When we were creating those, it was just kind of visual clutter. So we got rid of that. They didn't really do anything, but we removed those. And then if you're creating a printable list, so if I wanted to print this, let's see if I can get this to print nicely. There you go, print. Can you see the print preview with what I have shared now? Okay. So we just got rid of the edit and delete so that it looks better and easier to use. And then if you wanted basically a text only, you could hide the covers and do a print preview as well. So cut down on some of the space. Okay. Any questions on any of the list things? Okay. Also made a bunch of web builder updates. One of our libraries that just went live recently suggested a lot of things. They're using web builder for, it's a consortium of 9 libraries, and they're all using web builder as their primary or as their only web interface. So Aspen's their website, which is really cool. So made several updates for them. So being able to add hours and locations and embed those in a web page, you can do that easily now. Also, when you're adding an image to a web builder cell, you can give it a link. So if we're editing the cell, you can just provide a link so that it can click. So when you click on the image, it goes someplace else. And just updated a few permissions to better deal with some of the consortial arrangements. Some of the other, we won't go through all of the other updates, but starting support for Syndetics Unbound. Still have a little bit more to do on that. That might roll out by Thursday night when we deploy this to everybody. But we have a few partners starting to use Syndetics Unbound. So we want to include support for that. Right now it will load the descriptions properly and covers. We're just looking for all of that other content and trying to figure out the best way to do that, whether it's just one section within the details pages or if we show it in several sections. Also added the ability to show a large cover. So if we let's see if I can find a cover that looks good. Need to see covers if we want to make a large one. So if we went into like the Lightning Thief and clicked on this, we could get, in that case, they don't have a bigger one. Let's see if somebody else, one of these other ones do. No, they just provided small covers. Okay. Let's look at, so there's a larger comic book image. So nice for people that are looking for specific details on a cover. Other things, so a few changes for how we're loading things, especially with ISSN. So we should get more covers for magazines by default for grouped works. And then some miscellaneous fixes here, some fixes to subject display. So if you're only set to see LC subjects or bisect subjects, it wasn't showing any subjects, so now it will. We have some people using some long links for placards that we're including some, I think, proxy server settings. So those are fixed as well. We added the ability to use TikTok in your library contact links. Those are the links that show at the bottom. As we did that, we also updated to use Font Awesome for those, just to give a little bit better images that we can change colors of and that kind of thing. There is a new Koha feature to limit the number of requests that patrons can place in like 30 days, or I think you can specify the time frame. And some patrons had discovered that if they went through and deleted their requests, they could get extras. So we now have an option within the library settings that will allow you to prevent patrons from deleting their own materials requests to kind of close that loophole. Yeah, more translations. We had a case where people were setting themes per location or wanting to set themes per location. And that is now able to be done. We had a library migrate from BiblioCommons, so we can pull across ratings lists and shelf information from BiblioCommons now based off their export. Lots more translations. Some little things. So if you were applying multiple select facets and changing them, if you are on page 2, you might have fewer results after you change them. So we just reset you to the first page. Yeah. Any questions on any of that? It's kind of a lot to go over quickly. There will be some additional changes coming over the next kind of day or two, just as we close out a few more tickets. So yeah. Any questions, anyone? All right. Well, we'll have the recording of this available to anybody who wants it. And this will deploy Thursday night, the 13th. So. All right. Well, we'll
Thanks,
talk to you
Mark.
all. Yeah, thanks. We'll see everybody at the gathering on Thursday.
Yeah. If we don't have any questions now, we'll save them till then.
Okay, sounds good. And we'll make sure everybody's test systems and stuff are up to date if you have a test system.